Frank stabbed his ice axe into the steep, snow-laden slope and stopped to gaze at the swirling gray clouds clinging to the western Khum far below. He looked up at the jagged ridge of the mountain cutting into a slate-blue sky and switched his carabiner over onto the fixed line running up the face of the mountain. The yellow rope doubled and tripled before him as it writhed in the wind. That he barely felt the bitter cold biting into his body was a harbinger of things to come. He planted a foot on the ledge flanking the ridge and felt the teeth of his crampon scrape the rock. Gripping the line, he stiffened, then moved forward one step at a time. The leading edge of the ridge dipped to waist height a few meters ahead. He plodded to it, climbed up, and sat. From here, the whole world opened up before him. To his right, the serrated knife-edge summit of Lhotse and the spiked teeth of Nuptse and Makalu waited in the cloud cover. But neither the panoramic view nor the summit of Everest drove him. There was something else, something riding on the edge of his mind. To his left, the spine of Everest went ever upward. "Not that way," a voice whispered inside him. He scanned the sweeping snow and ice-laden landscape running down to the distant plains of China. A small orange speck clung to a rock not far away. He struggled to his feet and stumbled toward it. A man was sitting in knee-deep snow on the edge of a treacherous rim where a large, menacing crack in the snow zigzagged off to a guess. Suddenly the crack yawned and the mountain groaned, shedding its skin from under his feet. Snow rocketed into the air and swallowed him. Frank clung to the rope, battling the undercurrent dragging him over the edge. He tumbled down over and over in a white world, cartwheeling and spinning out of control until Frank Kincaid's heart lurched and he shot up in bed. Breathless and in a cold sweat, he ran his hand through his hair, pulling a knot of it back from his bristled face. As the dream faded, he flipped the heavy woolen blanket off and swung his bony legs over the edge of the thin, lumpy mattress. The cold plank floor met his bare, calloused feet as he sat in the shadows cloaking the room. Standing, he squinted into the sliver of sunlight sliding through the clouded window. His expedition lead guide, Dawa, was dead. He shook his head. He'd lost his friend on the mountain, and for what? To improve his client's chances of a summit? This was the third bad decision he'd made during his life regarding the mountain, and it had claimed yet another friend. He dragged his pants from the foot of the bed, stepped into them, and shuffled barefoot out to the privy, coughing. It had been a week since the disaster on the Icefall. 16 men, friends he'd known for years, were dead. But the death of his Sherpa was on him. He owned it all. He zipped up and tromped out to the main room where he lit an oil lamp hanging from a hook next to the fireplace. The old stone house he'd lived in for the last 45 years was a mess. Laundry was draped on the back of chairs, dirty plates and mugs were scattered about the tables. An empty bottle of wine lay on its side by the stone hearth. He set the bottle back up, stirred the banked embers in the hearth and added a handful of kindling to them. Pulling a heavy wool shirt off the floor, he put it on, then slipped into his sandals lying nearby. As he waited for the flames to gain strength, he yanked a ragged curtain back and peered outside. It was a typical Himalayan morning in the sleepy mountain village, clear skies with hardly a wisp of cloud. Down the lane, a rhododendron flanking the whitewashed walls of the monastery was putting out buds. A pile of smoldering juniper boughs lay by the front gate, sending resinous smoke up into the blue dome of the world. He let the curtain fall back, feeling like a criminal. Guilt traveled with him like a shadow lately, and he covered it with silence. Silence that had once turned a woman he loved away and now threatened another who loved him more. He reached beside him, grabbing a handful of pine kindling stacked near the fireplace and added it to the tiny fire in the corner of the hearth. As he did so, his cell phone vibrated in his pocket. He took it out and saw Sarah's number flashing on the screen.